Governor Sonny Perdue, prior to where he has served the last 4 years with great distinction. Prior to being appointed as the youngest member of the court by the governor, he served as Governor Perdue's executive counsel, advising the government on a wide range of issues, including the water wars with our neighboring states and other very important state issues, including the delivery and administration of criminal justice services across the state. Prior to going to work for the governor, Justice Melton spent 11 years in the Georgia Law Department, where he served with great distinction to 2 different attorney generals. And before being appointed to the court, he was recognized as a super lawyer by Atlanta Magazine and as 40 Rising Star under 40 by Georgia Trend Magazine. In addition to fulfilling his duties on the court and also helping Kim raise their 3 children, Justice Melton serves at his church and as a director of Youth Atlanta. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Justice Melton.
Thank you, Phil, and good evening to everyone here, to George Maxwell, Honorable Mayor Franklin, to Doug Amar. It's a pleasure to be here on this wonderful night to give honor to a woman who I've come to know as my chief, Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears, who can only be described as a woman of first. And you've heard her story perhaps several times. It's printed out in the bulletin. But just briefly, she was the youngest and first African-American woman to be appointed to the Superior Court bench in the state of Georgia. She was the first woman and the youngest person to serve on the Supreme Court. She had to fight for re-election, and upon winning, she was the first woman to win a contested statewide election in the state of Georgia. She was the first African-American woman to serve as a Chief Justice on our state Supreme Court, and I believe that was the first in the country as well. So she's a woman of first, and there's much, much more that I could say in that regard. And for these great accomplishments, she's been recognized several times, and she has received many distinctions and awards and honors because of these accomplishments. But that really only tells part of the story. One of the awards that you might not know about is that she received the distinction of being named as one of the top 10 best dressed women in the city of Atlanta. And so check her out when she walks up. But Atlanta Magazine gave her that distinction in 2006. But as I've been to many events where Chief Justice Sears has been recognized, there's always been one major aspect that seems to get overlooked. And so I consider it a privilege to have an opportunity to talk about some other aspects of who this woman I've come to know actually is. It's one thing to get to all these spots, to rise to these levels, but once you get there, you have to do something. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about what it is that she's actually done when she's got there. And I'll just talk about the one position that I have the opportunity to see her work in firsthand, and that is her role as Chief Justice on the Supreme Court. It's a fair question to ask, was she a good Chief Justice? And the answer was absolutely yes. She was an excellent Chief Justice on our Supreme Court. I saw her work in ways that nobody else got to see. I saw her work behind the scenes to build bridges. I saw her learn the value of the no comment, but then pick up the phone and work constructively behind the scenes. She was able to build bridges where people presume there would be animosity. She earned the trust of people who really didn't trust her. She ushered our court system, not just our court, but the entire judiciary, through a budget crisis, which we're still in the midst of. But in that, she has protected the judiciary in a way that I think only she would have been able to do. It's customary for Chief Justices to have a pet project. And I don't even want to use the word pet for what she decided to take on. She created the Georgia Supreme Court Commission on Children, Marriage, and Family, realizing that the family structure is the greatest institution we have in our country for raising kids. It's the greatest social program that we have. And she had her naysayers. People thought maybe that wasn't appropriate for a judge on our court within the judicial branch to take on. Maybe that was too big to take on. Maybe there were too many undercurrents that politically she should stay away from. But she had a sense of commitment. She had a sense of integrity that said that's what she needed to do. A sense of conviction that made her press on. And in that, she's initiated a conversation that I think is invaluable to our state and to where we need to go. And so she was an excellent Chief Justice. Now, to get to where she is, she obviously had to have some fight in her. She does have that fight, and I've seen her fight for herself, but what has impressed me even more is her willingness to fight for others. Mess with her family, she's gonna come at you. But she's also very protective of her fellow colleagues on the court. She's protective of the judiciary as a whole, and she'll fight just as hard. It's been beautiful to watch her suffer insults from occasion, but still fight for others more readily. But that's still only a small part, because we know that you can gain the world and lose your soul. So I still think you have to ask, who is this woman? What kind of person is she? And you'll find that as you get to know her, she is a wonderful person, great person, a great person to listen to issues, to work through solutions, to come up with a creative solution just in the time when the conversation could really turn south. She has an infectious laugh. She's warm-hearted, and she's nothing but gracious. And so it's an honor for me to be a part of this evening where we recognize her for her accomplishments. But I hope that we don't forget to recognize who she is as a person, as an extremely gracious woman. She's got a wonderful family. Her husband Haskell is here. Her mother is always present. I know she would love to be here tonight. Her daughter Brennan and her son Addison are pleasures to be with. They're taking on the world. Hopefully one day I'll get a job working for them. But do yourself a favor. If you ever have the opportunity to invite yourself to dinner at her table where you can actually get to know this woman, I'm sure she'd be glad to spread a meal out for you, and you'll be the better off for it. So I congratulate GJP on having the sense to honor her, and also the Chief Justice Sears for who she is as a person. Thank you, Chief. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Harold, or Justice Melton, my friend, so much for that so very gracious and flattering introduction. And I just want to say that I am honored to be included this evening with such wonderful people as the Bashors and Horace Sibley. This is a prestigious award from a prestigious organization, and I'm included among people of great prestige, and I'm humbled, really. And to all my friends and my peers, and especially my law firm, Schiff Hardin, who were kind enough to come here this evening in the cold to support me once again in this event, my thank you. Would all of the folks at Schiff Hardin, my lawyer new friends, please raise your hand. Don't stand, it's too cold. And the most important person in my life is here. Justice Melton mentioned that my two children are abroad. My son Addison lives in Mauritius, a small island in the Indian Ocean now, laying a broadband cable from Mumbai down to Cape Town to double the capacity of the internet in Eastern Africa. And my daughter just took off to the Peace Corps, so I'm an empty nester for the first time. But my husband Haskell here, most important man in my life, would you please raise your hand? You know, we should never forget that behind the walls of every prison are fathers and mothers and sons and daughters and husbands and wives and friends and neighbors, and people who are human beings just like we are. And because of that, I wouldn't ever suggest that we should open the doors or fling the doors of our prisons open. We should never do that. But we need to remember that the people that organizations like the Georgia Justice Project are supporting and giving their ongoing support are human beings. And it is our job to grant them grace. We should reject hate. We should always reject hate at every juncture. We should never, ever give up on people, no matter who we are or what our job. And that we should understand, once again, that grace really should be granted to every human being. And that's why I really do admire you, Doug, and the work of the Georgia Justice Project. Again, I thank you for this great award, and I'm pleased that you think that in some small way I could be included among the people that support my community. I came to Atlanta about 25 years ago now, and I'll never leave it because of people like you. Thank you so very much.